Hello! On this very gloomy, kind of thundery, interesting Wednesday? Yeah, it's Wednesday. Had to remind myself. I'm making a video in response to my good friend, my dear friend Ray, who asked the question today here on LinkedIn, or I should say on LinkedIn because I'm going to post this to YouTube as well, about what it is that those of us who are neurospicy have done, or what we consider as part of being neurospicy as one of our superpowers. And, though this is probably about take 4 of trying to make this video, just to be clear, the first 2 are because of technical difficulties, not because I couldn't talk about the subject. The third one I had to scrap because I went off super far on a tangent, but that's okay. So when I wanted to make or create a response for Ray, I was going to just type this big long wall of text, but I thought it was actually better to make a video because I actually got a message in my inbox as well today where it references the little section I have on my LinkedIn profile that talks about being neurospicy. So before I hit the answer of Ray's question, I'm going to rewind a little bit, and I'm just going to talk about why I post that so publicly. So as a woman in this industry, I have been afforded the benefit of seeing many other strong women come before me and be able to see their example of, what's possible. And I think that when we talk about any kind of diversity, representation matters. Being able to look around and see somebody like yourself that has done it before almost empowers you to know that you can. I remember when I was pregnant, I was super scared and I had all these unknowns in my head, and I would get anxiety about what labor was going to be like. And not to be like to make this about being a mom or anything, but like for real, I'm talking about something very difficult in life. When you haven't gone through something before, it can be a little bit scary. It's outside your comfort zone. And for me, one of the things that I hit around, I think it was around 7 months, was this idea, and I kept sticking to it, kept answering my anxiety with this, which was, women do this all the time. You can look around and see many people that that have survived this, and you can do it because you've seen other people do it. And representation kind of works the same way. So if we talk about seeing women, out there killing it, and that being an inspiration for other women, wonderful. When we talk about something like ADHD, which can be incredibly debilitating without proper support, without strategies and tools to be able to intervene, then seeing other people who are succeeding or who are currently facing that battle is important. It is one of the ways that we know, first of all, that we're not alone, and that we know that other people might have some hints or tools or things that we might be able to use. Ignore any of the flickering of my video. I'll figure out what's going on with that later. But anyway, and I think, when we're talking about representation, putting content out there, having that in our profiles, doing what we can to help others like us is a really important part of that. It's not just saying, oh, hey, I have a squirrel brain. It's also, these are the things that work for me. Maybe they could work for you. And someone who may not be ready to identify, to go out there and help other people, have things to try. And I know for me, social media has been a huge helper with that. And I've had other examples that have given me strategies to try, and those things have worked. And I think recognizing where your limitations are and communicating is important. My son also has, actually both my sons, but the one more severe than the other has ADHD, and I talk to him a lot about advocacy, like advocating for himself, asking for what he needs from in the moment. And those things are, invaluable as far as tools. They can apply whether you're neurospicy or not. And advocating for oneself and what you need could be for just about any reason. So I think that showing people how you can do that is an incredibly important facet of being out there and talking about it publicly. Ray's question specifically, though, was how do you utilize your superpower? And this video is actually it. My preparation for this video is zero. It's my thoughts. I have a friend, a dear friend who calls it my chat GPT brain. I could sit in any conversation and have a conversation with someone for a great length of time, because I do a lot of reading. I, go out there, I experience, I travel, I do whatever, and I bring those things to my conversations. I bring those things to the topics that I will talk about here. And it allows me to be able to relate to people, to be able to teach, to communicate, whatever the case may be. And the reality is, in this world where everything is very relationship based, being able to establish trust really comes from that ability to be relatable. And absolutely nothing that I bring forward is fake or inauthentic or not part of who I am, but it's almost like having a library. It's like there's different books, and I'm able to pull out the book about the topic that the person in front of me might be most interested in. They're still a part of me, but it is something relatable to them, so that we're able to build on something that we share in common. And sometimes I have more books in common with somebody than the other. There's certain cases where it's like every book in the library is almost the same. And those situations, are super exciting. But then on the flip side, sometimes I meet somebody and it's like, I've never read that book before. And instead of looking at it like, oh, I have nothing in common with you, let's get out of here, it's more, I can add to my knowledge base. I can learn something from you. And that for me is exciting. That is, everybody talks about ADHD. There's something you call hyperfocus, where you pick up a new habit or a new hobby, craft, whatever. And I have a whole thing over here that you can't see that's full of things that I've started and maybe didn't finish. But that's on my personal time, so we're not going to talk about it. But when it comes to those things, I often find people that are wildly different than me, almost a little bit like that, where I'm able to kind of learn and hyper focus on what it is that they're telling me so that I can assimilate that knowledge. And one of the things that, I'm just going to do a little plug here, one of the things that I really love about being a part of the MSP Geek community was that's exactly what it was for me. I met a lot of people whose brains work similarly to mine, but their knowledge base and their libraries were vastly different. And I had thoughts or maybe suppositions or hypotheses about the stuff that they knew about, but I didn't know for sure if what I was thinking was correct. So I was able to go, and I'm still able to go into that community and get feedback or, be able to borrow from the knowledge base of people there and then share mine and vice versa, which might be different. And I'm going to sound old when I say this, but I'm super jazzed about that. Like, that is something that I find really exciting, because at the core of who I am is somebody who wants to learn. I like ingesting as much information as possible. Not because I believe everything, there's got to be a filter and some critical thinking in there, but I like to have it to weigh against. Consider it metrics, data, KPIs, whatever you want to call it. But for me, that's all encompassed in my superpower. It is, I want to learn as much as possible. I'm thirsty for learning. And I think one of the things that I have learned about not just the representation side, about talking about diversity and things like neurodivergence, is understanding how my team is better for having diversity of thought. I've talked a few times in videos about this, but if we just put everybody with the same brain into the same room and made sure that everybody was carbon copy, like the last person that we hired that we thought did a really good job, we'd probably have an okay team, but we'd probably come up with pretty uniform responses. And I mean, there's probably some situations where that would be ideal. But when you're talking about problem solving and troubleshooting and coming up with things that, are technologically based, which technology is constantly changing, I think it's kind of a disservice to not seek out diversity, or in this case, divergence. The superpower of most people who have ADHD is that you're able to consider a multitude of things at one time, and that is invaluable. I have found the same thing from working with people with anxiety. And I think considering how they're constantly evaluating in their brain what makes something safe or not safe, I don't know a better person in some ways to work in cybersecurity or to work directly with clients, because they're considering things that maybe the average person wouldn't. I mean, you want to have a couple mavericks, you want to have a couple people that are willing to break things as they fix it. But having that blend on your team means that you're going to have all those different kinds of considerations. And, part of managing a team like that, or also helping grow a team like that, is to consider those differences and what is the counterbalance to making sure that they're successful. How do you bring empathy? How do you bring just compassion to their faults or flaws or whatever is happening in front of them, so that you can both benefit from the superpower, like what Ray was talking about, but then create less anxiety around the areas in which they may not conform, or where they may diverge, because you have to recognize that divergence benefits you in other areas. So might as well have some grace. I think as humans, we need more grace, period. But that is my number one tip to anybody who is managing a team with neurodivergence. And that is prevalent in tech pretty heavily. So it's the grace to understand that if you benefit on one end, then you have to take some of the lumps that come on the other end, and then work with the person to kind of, help them understand what tool set that they can use, or how they can help advocate for themselves and what they need, and identify that, because we will all be better with more diversity of thought, with more divergence in our teams, with more critical thinking, with more information to be able to properly consider. You need people who can make decisions, but you need the people who give them the information to make the decisions the best from. And so that's my answer to Ray's question, but also to why I heavily talk about it and why you should consider it if you are in technology, because helping people be their best is only going to be to your benefit. And that includes acknowledging where they're at right now and how you can help them get to where they could be the best version of themselves. So hope you are safe if you are in a place where there's storms happening today. And if you have sunshine, I'm jealous, because spring should be sunshiny most of the time. Anyway, thanks for listening, guys. Take care.